I don't even know how to say it, but like you and Michael probably speak each other's language so well that you kind of like, you're married, you kind of know how like everything's going to go. Clearly, you two work together. Rob and I work well together.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get in such a rhythm that you blow past things and you don't really like solve key issues. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I know
And then
exactly
they
what
end
you
up
mean.
coming back and biting you. And so like his perspective brought out a different perspective that we both needed to hear.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it makes
it,
sense. Like Mike and I will do, our weekly level 10, and sometimes we'll finish in like 50 or 60 minutes, and it's
yeah,
like, what are we missing? Or like, what did we miss? Or what did we go too quickly through? Just because, like you said, it's like, we're just in a rhythm and we talk so much, it's
yeah,
easy to just blow through things as opposed to having somebody else like challenge or just ask some questions. It might be a little more
yeah.
difficult.
Slow it down.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, man. So how did you get into the tile business?
Are we rocking?
We're rocking.
All right, cool.
That's our little segue.
All right, cool. Tile business, yeah. So I grew up in the glass business. My dad was a shower glass vendor in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And so I grew up, I mean, when I was in middle school, I was showing up and like he was having me do some of his marketing. And then in high school, I would actually go out with the crews and help him install shower glass. We did like shower glass and mirrors,
Yep.
all residential stuff.
Hmm.
And then in college, I was studying marketing and management.
Hmm.
And when I would come back on like the breaks, like winter break or summer break, I would do like different sales and marketing stuff for him, just like learning, kind of the ins and outs of business. And at that point, kind of like interning, trying to figure out what I was going to do after college.
Hmm.
And then I went to college. My junior and senior year, I went to college in South Carolina, graduated, and didn't want to go back home. My dad always wanted me to come back and work with him, but I didn't want to go back to Cincinnati. And Greenville, South Carolina was close to where we were. I
Hmm.
was in Spartanburg, South Carolina,
Hmm.
and I was like, I want to stay there. And long story short, a guy that was working for my dad at that time had worked for this company called the Tile Shop, and it's a nationwide company, very sales driven,
Hmm.
retail environment. And he was like, it would be a great place for you to cut your teeth. And they
Yeah.
have a location in Greenville, South Carolina. So that was the only tie that I had, was just that recommendation. And I knew I wanted to move to Greenville. So I went down there and just jumped in the sales force. And within 6 months, like really enjoyed it, that kind of speed, that fast pace.
Yeah.
It was a lot of time, like, because we were open Saturdays and Sundays. So I spent a lot of time at the shop, but I got my feet wet and I was doing well. So I ended up getting promoted to assistant manager and then manager, and they kind of moved me around to a couple different locations at that point. But that was how I got into tile originally.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I imagine, working for your dad and like the family owned business is a great education and great experience, but then going to work for a business that's not owned by your family
Yeah.
and like not reporting to your dad is probably just a different perspective. And
Yeah. I actually always enjoyed it more. Like, I don't know. My dad and I are so similar.
mhm.
So, like, I don't know if we necessarily butt heads or what. But I always enjoyed, like, I left for college. I didn't want to go, like, I left for work. I was always the one that, like, wanted to move around and do different things. Like,
Mhm.
always felt like I would thrive and just new in different environments. So that was, yeah, that was good for me.
I was stalking your LinkedIn. Did you do a stint in software sales?
Yeah, I did
Like,
for like 6 months.
tell me about that.
Well, so I worked at the tile shop for 3.5, 4 years, and at that point we were in Columbus, Ohio,
Mhm.
and I was dating my now wife at that point, and I was working like 65 hours a week,
Yeah.
7 days a week. The company again that I was working for, the tile shop, I mean, we were open 7 days a week, and as a manager, you're always on call,
Mhm.
let alone at the shop. And I was managing at that point a top 5 store in the company,
Wow.
um, and it was just high volume.
Mhm.
And I think like as we were evaluating, like, hey, maybe at this point we got engaged and we were having these conversations of like, where's my career going to go? And there were so many opportunities financially, and I was having a lot of fun.
Mhm.
But at the same time, we started to talk about family,
Yeah,
and we
exactly.
started to talk about like, at that point, I had moved to 3 different cities, and I was 24. So within 2 years, they had moved me 3 times. So we were just evaluating all that, praying about it. And I guess the long story short of how we got into software sales is we were like, we wanted to try Atlanta. That was kind of like, we were like, we want to go to Atlanta. And I remember
Just because, or
we were
what
praying
was the?
about location. She had an aunt there.
Uh
I don't know like the exact reason why we landed on Atlanta, but that was, we knew we wanted to move south because she was like, the cold was driving her crazy. She's from the South originally.
Okay.
I was in South Carolina for college and a
Yep.
little bit thereafter. So I was like, cool. So we were like big cities, Atlanta, and then she knew a good friend that had worked at this software company, and one thing led to another, and they offered both of us jobs.
Cool.
So yeah, it was something. It was definitely an answered prayer. But then when we got down there, we were down there for 8 months in total, and it just didn't go the way we expected it to go.
Yeah.
So that's the long story short.
Good life experience.
Yeah, yeah. Not all decisions are good decisions, but we learned a lot, and
Yeah.
we ended up getting married down there, and that was kind of just the launching pad for
Nice.
our marriage, and so it was good.
So how'd you guys get to Wilmington? Or
Yeah, so her father did residency here. She was born here, lived here until 2. He left and started a practice in South Carolina and then moved back when she was in college. So when we were in Atlanta, we were kind of phasing out of the software sales, and I
yeah,
knew I wanted to get back into something in the trades.
yeah.
And we were praying, then we were praying about, okay, where do we want to go at this point? And we were discussing either Greenville, South Carolina,
Hmm.
where I had gone to college, and that's where close to where her father's medical practice was,
Yep.
and or Wilmington, where her parents live currently.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to raise a family close to her parents,
Yeah.
and that was a big part of it. And then at that point, when the software sales position ended and we kind of separated, um, I got connected to a couple brothers here, Sellers Tile,
Hmm.
came up for an interview one weekend. We kind of discussed some different ideas, which one of those ended up being Refine.
Hmm.
And then within the next weekend, or within the next week, I had moved here to start work with them.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it happened pretty fast.
And then so getting back into, I guess, the tile business, that was something I guess that you were kind of like used to. Was it like just kind
Yeah,
of like jumping back into, what you were used to doing, or?
a little bit. So Sellers Tile is an installation company.
Right.
So my background was in selling and designing and retail sales. So like, like managing a sales staff.
Yep.
And what we discussed when we moved to Wilmington was come on, help them with like essentially estimating in the beginning,
Hmm.
and then doing like little project management type stuff, and then like launching Refine. So they had just moved into a new facility. They didn't have a huge showroom, but
Hmm.
they kind of had they were like, this could be like 1,000 square foot kind of start or launching pad for Refine. So the first 2 years was helping them run the tile division, doing estimates and helping project manage a little bit.
Hmm.
And then proof of concepting Refine and trying to figure out like, bringing in vendors and what we can sell and what all that, essentially starting the business
Hmm.
for Refine.
How
So,
cool.
yeah.
I didn't realize that was something that you guys had like talked about from the beginning as part of like a plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was loose conversations, and I think it was, let's see what we can make happen kind of thing. I think they knew I had a lot of aspirations, like, and where it was like the short-term help for them was I could help, manage, help Justin manage the tile division, and then the long-term gain would be like, hey, could we start something that could, be profitable
Definitely.
and grow? So.
So when you guys started, was Refine always like the name from the beginning that you guys had talked about, or was that something that evolved over time?
Yeah, I think like the first year I was really trying to like I loved that they were all on board with starting this new business,
Hmm.
and but I really wanted to like the first year like honor my commitment to them. Like they hired me to do this job,
Right.
and I had a lot to learn, like
Totally.
the labor side of things and project management side of things, the installation side of things. Um, that first year or two, I was learning things that I had never learned just from providing design services or selling tile.
Right.
So it was really good for me now 7 years removed from this move or transition, it was really good for me to learn that piece of it, learn what the trades guys go through, learn what the guys in the field moving tile. Like
Mhm.
I was driving the forklift, pulling stuff off trucks and
Yep,
staging job by job. So like those were all things that I had to like learn and kind of cut my teeth on.
definitely.
So yeah. So to answer your question, I tried to honor that the first year. I remember like being like, okay, I want to do this job well before we kind of move on to the next thing.
Awesome.
So
And learning kind of, I guess, from the ground up, so to speak. I mean, I'm sure n- doing some of those jobs is probably pretty helpful for where you sit now.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like again, like when you build something from the ground up, like you're just trying things, you're iterating, you're
Hmm.
evolving, you're making a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? And so like, yeah, I mean, there was so much that I didn't know that I was just trying to like throw myself into to like learn as quickly as I could,
Yep.
because I am like I do have aspirations, I have goals, like I want to go achieve things. And so a lot of it is just trying to figure out and kind of fall forward with everything.
Definitely.
So that took some time and got some bruises along the way.
Yeah, for sure. When you guys started Refine, was that like immediately like, hey, let's create a separate like business, a separate legal entity, or was it kind of still part of the legacy business, so to
Yeah.
speak, and then like spun off at some point?
Yeah, I guess I didn't answer the question of the name piece. So that first year, I was focused on like the seller's tile thing, like
Yeah.
installation, estimates, all that. And then I think year two, like we started to like finish the showroom, bring in some vendors, and tried to like navigate like how can we sell tile, um, like how do we service our current clients that maybe we're installing for without, um, like we were kind of dipping our toes in, I guess.
Yeah.
And so we were at that point operating under seller's tile,
Right.
but like we knew that like long term that wasn't like the solution as we scaled, right? But that so that was year two. I was at Sellers, and that was just like I call it or consider it like a proof of concept year.
Yeah.
Like we were starting to practice, but we didn't have the name. And after a year, and I tracked everything on spreadsheets and stuff like that. And I just remember being like, hey, like this is what we did this year, and like it's pretty good. I think like we're ready to rock and make something of this. And at that point, we started to have the conversations of like, okay, let's LLC it. What's the name? And starting to brand it a little bit. So
Very cool.
yeah,
I mean, just the experience of starting a business from scratch. I mean, from like the technical side, like the LLC and the accounting and
yeah,
all the compliance things that you have to do, but then, you know, just taking something from, kind of zero to where it is now.
yeah. When I was really fortunate, Justin and Joe, they were amazing, and since they had such a, I mean, it's a third generation business, they were so established where like their office essentially handled a lot of that stuff, and
Got it.
they already had CPAs, they already had office managers, they already had that structure that was able to, for us to like kind of launch off of that,
Yeah.
which was really good for me because it kept me in a position of I could hustle, I could build sales, I could, I was delivering stuff, I was trying to figure out ways to add value to clients, I was trying to grow the business.
Right.
So where maybe like a sole proprietor may get slowed down, I was able to kind of stay humming and like looking back, like we were able to continue to grow in those early years because I was able to focus on, what I was both passionate about and what was most important to the business.
Yeah.
So
So now what is Refined Tiles core like business, and what do you guys do?
yeah, so it started just tile sales, and it's evolved a lot, right? So we moved into a new facility 2 years ago.
Hmm.
So we went from 1,000 square feet to 6,000 square foot showroom,
Holy smokes.
and then 20,000 square feet in warehouse.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, it's crazy. And then another 2,500 square feet in offices.
Hmm.
So it's a huge facility. And so as we were moving in there, along the way, my sales manager, his name's Rob. He moved here from Maine 3 or 4 years ago,
Hmm.
and he had designed like two showrooms for companies up there. Same thing, tile, but he introduced and helped me come around to doing like flooring and surfaces. So we do hardwood, we do area rugs, stair runners, carpet, and then we do pavers as well. So those were kind of the additional surfaces
Mm-hmm.
that we ended up adding along the way.
Yep.
So it's tile, hardwood, carpet,
Yep.
and pavers. So those four. And we played around with some different stuff, things that didn't work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We were trying to figure out like what our clientele really liked and what added value to them. And so those were the four, and kind of currently where we're at is those are our four main surfaces that we provide.
And then you also help clients, like, with design services as well.
Yeah, so our showroom, that's our main thing, right? Is you can come in, it's majority residential. We
Hmm.
work with a lot of interior designers and custom builders, and they come in and they're designing everything from bathrooms to kitchens to the flooring to pool decks. But yeah, so
Got it.
like our designers are the main, they run our business essentially.
Got it.
And then we've got the fulfillment side, which is ordering the product, right?
Yep.
We got to order it. We got to send estimate ETAs. We got to make sure everything comes in, gets checked in, and then we supply it to the job for the installers to kind of take over.
Got it. Got it.
So
So most of your customers are coming in already kind of through a referral of like a interior designer or a home builder or something like that.
yeah, we're starting to get walk-ins, which is great. I
Good.
think that's a
Oh,
reflection of our brand.
heck yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a majority of our business for sure. We're
Yeah.
probably in that like 66% range of two-thirds of our business is from designers or builders that we work with
Right.
regularly.
Yeah.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah.
So, talk to me about building a brand, because that was something I wanted to talk about, and you just mentioned that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something you could just overnight just say, "Hey, here's our brand," you know.
Yeah.
And you guys have, from what I can tell, positioned yourself as more of a quality, high end, and like high touch with customers. So, tell me a little bit about the vision behind that and just the progression of how you get to that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. It's a living document, right? So
Yeah.
you're constantly trying things and iterating. So I think in the beginning, like let's just say that first year, we were trying to just get whatever we could, right?
Mhm.
Like just
I know that game.
you know,
You got to
it,
start somewhere,
that's
right?
right. And
Yeah.
then year two, you start to evaluate, you start to figure out who you are as a business, where your niche is in the marketplace. You get that through feedback, through listening, through profit. Where is the money the best? And
Yep.
years 2 and 3, we're trying to figure out this like volume versus profitability versus different product offerings, and just in navigating all of that, I guess to kind of fast forward is like we want to be a high-end luxury brand that's still accessible for that mid-tier client.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an elevated experience, but we don't want it to be out of reach for anybody,
Right.
if that makes sense. Like anybody who comes into our showroom, we want them to feel like we can service them, like
Right.
we can take care of them, but you will get a high-end experience no matter what, and we will help solve your problems. And we're not for everybody because we are one of the more expensive vendors in town,
Mm-hmm.
but between the product, the service, and then the experience, like we feel like the value is there. And so for our clients, I
Mm-hmm.
say clients in quotations, the people that value those things, we're a good fit for. So when you say like brand, it's really like identifying that. I think it's communicating it to our team and making sure they're aligned. Like, hey, this is who we serve. And again, we want to be accessible for everybody. Like anybody who walks in, we want them to feel welcomed, warm, like they have a place there. But at the same time, this is what the value that we add, and we want you to be, assured of that. And then, like for us, our dream clients are interior designers and custom builders.
Yep.
And so all the language that we're trying to speak, both through our team and through their client interactions, or through our marketing, or we do a lot of events and lunch and learns, is like we want to be a value add in this industry and in this space. And so again, you get an elevated experience, and these are the things that we're trying to add to the industry. And I think all of that with the people kind of encompasses like our brand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know exactly what the question is of like how you get there, other than you're just trying to like build it along the way,
Yeah.
you know. But I think to land the plane, I think I would just say like we knew we wanted to service high-end clients.
Right.
We knew we wanted, or we knew we needed our marketing and our reputation and our people to support that.
Right.
So
And it's an iterative process. You know, you got to start with something,
yeah,
and you trial and error to a certain extent of,
yeah.
and just kind of step by step working your way up.
Yeah. We have like, so we'll get to EOS later, but
Yeah.
we have our 4 core values and then we have our 4 client value adders.
Okay.
And those things have changed and evolved throughout the years.
Yeah.
But like the 4 client value adders, like the main things that we're focused on all support that brand.
Yeah. I don't want to put you on the spot. I'm sure you know them by
Yeah.
heart, but what are your 4
Yeah.
client value add?
Yeah. Curious and passionate team,
Mm-hmm.
innovative client experience,
Mm-hmm.
add value to industry partners,
Yep.
and best in class showroom.
Nice.
Yeah. And, so 3 years ago when we were in a different showroom, but best in class showroom is not what we were known for.
Right. Exactly.
So that was something that we stepped in, like that was something we had the vision for, but we had to kind of step into that.
Yeah.
So anyways,
Would you consider yourself a patient or impatient person?
that's so funny. That's like what I'm learning the most right now is
Yeah.
patience in business.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would I consider myself that? No. I think if you asked my wife, maybe one of the areas I've grown the most in the past 4 or 5 months this year, she would say patience for
That's a
sure.
big deal.
Yeah. And I think that's hard in business,
It
right?
is.
Because everything is so outcome oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I think our world's very outcome oriented. And so you look at ROI, right? What do I
Mm-hmm.
put in? What do I get out? What do I put in? What do I get out?
Yep.
And what I'm learning in business right now and where I'm being stretched is that I think as our businesses get bigger, more and more patience is required because we can't force at a certain point. And I think we're kind of in this life cycle now at Refine is like, I can't force my people to grow. I can't force our business to grow. I can't force our product offerings to expand, right? I can't force our projects to go faster.
Right.
I can't force clients to pay, quicker. And so, but there's a level of faith that comes with doing things the right way, being committed to the brand, like we talked about, and the people
Mm-hmm.
that you have on your team, and, iterating each week, trying to solve the biggest problems, and then ultimately having the faith, patience that comes with knowing that you're doing the right things that are going to lead to the ultimate, success or returns or whatever we're aspiring for.
Definitely. It's a journey.
Yeah, it is a journey for sure.
And tell me a little bit about going from being an employee to being a partner and then being, an owner, like
Yeah,
what's that? What's that journey been like?
yeah, that's a good question. Um, it's something I think about a lot. So when we started the business, I was a part owner.
Okay.
So I always had share in the business but it evolved, right? And I don't know if this is the question specifically, but when you ask it, this is the first thing that comes to mind is like, what is my role within the business day to day
Yeah.
versus like what it looks like or feels like to be an owner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so again, EOS, we have an accountability chart. And
Yep.
it's so funny. I remember so many of my dad's like, he's a really good like picture painter. Like he always, or he'll tell parables. And I remember I went into a meeting when I was in high school, and he always had his team meetings on Monday morning. And he had all these hats. He had just ordered all these white hats, and there was like 20 of them. And he started like taping and writing in Sharpie like the different roles that come with it.
That is brilliant.
He owns and runs a small business.
Yeah.
And he just started throwing hats to people. He was like, you know what I mean? Like, this
Yeah.
is your role. And then, I remember one guy who's throwing 3 or 4 or 5 hats too. He was like, these are all the hats that you wear, right?
Yep.
And it's something that stuck with me because while that's both true, it's also something like a problem that we need to solve in small businesses
Mm-hmm.
is how do we simplify each person's role so they know exactly what they need to do to be successful.
Right.
And so for me, along the way, right, we just hired a new salesperson, and she said, I can't remember the question she asked. This was earlier this week. She said, "Did you used to do that?" And I was like, And I was like, yeah, I used to do that. I used to cut the checks. I used to do the HR. I used to run the forklift. I used to do the sales. I used to do the order. Like when, in the first year I was employee number one.
Right.
I was
Right.
one of one. And so you do everything. And so as you start to hire people, it's interesting because you're both trying to hold people accountable to their job while also maintaining what the business needs at that point in time,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a dance. And when you ask that question, I think what's fun is like right now, the role I have within the company is like the general manager. So I'm responsible for, we have a marketing team, a sales team, an operations team, and a finance team.
Right.
And so I'm over those 4 teams.
Right.
Currently, I'm the operations manager as well, while
Yep.
we train our warehouse purchasing manager to assume that role. But I
Yep.
can't force that to happen. So
Yep.
I'm kind of like sitting in this simultaneously. We currently employ or use you and Capone's services, right? So I've got Eric, who's a fractional CFO.
Yep.
So I like sit in that seat, but Eric does the job. So
Right.
those are like between the general manager and then those two boxes, those are like my employee roles within the company.
Right.
But then if you looked at our accountability chart, there's also like the owner, visionary,
Right.
like role that I sit into. So
Yep.
currently I wear those 3 hats. And I think it's, to answer your question, the transition, it's been amazing. It's been freeing to release some of the responsibilities. It's also been a challenge because you're handing things off to people that, um, honestly, that do things better
I
than you
know.
do them, but it's different than you do them.
Yep.
And so I think it's wrestling with that's not how I would do it, but I see what you're doing and it's working.
Yeah.
My business mentor, Kevin, who's also our EOS coach, he
Yeah.
said, one of our meetings, he said, if Rob's our sales manager, he said, if Rob gets to the same goal that you have, but goes a different way, are you okay with it? And I said, yes, no, yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like,
Wait, our
wait,
clients are going to be happy? Like
yeah.
we're still going to hit our revenue targets?
I'm like, can you break that down for me a
Yeah.
couple?
Yeah.
So in becoming, going from employee to owner, it's that again, it's a dance. It's a balance of trying to hire the right people to do the things well, to train and equip them, but then giving them the freedom to operate how they know how to operate too. And in that, you become an owner,
Yep.
right? And then you sit in this different seat, and I, patience. I think like I'm trying to figure out, like I'm new to this owner thing, even though I've been a part owner of a company for over 5 years now,
Yep.
and I acquired 100% of the business last July.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're coming up on 1 year of being 100% owner. I'm still trying to navigate and figure out what that means.
Yep.
Like, what does this look like? What is it? It certainly feels different, both in good and bad ways,
Yep.
or both in good and hard ways. And so I'm just trying to navigate like what that role looks like. How do I add value to the company while also giving the employees space to operate?
Yeah.
So,
No, you actually rephrased that question in a really good way to say, you know, how about looking at it more of how is my role within working in slash working on the business changed over time?
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about an accountability chart because we threw out titles. I'm general manager, and I think this is a lot of so many small businesses experience this, that it's like, oh yeah, that's our sales manager. Oh, but also part of this person's role is like
Yeah.
7 things that don't have anything to do with sales manager, right?
Yeah.
So tell us like break down what an accountability chart is and like how that might be a little bit different than what like your technical title
Yeah.
would be.
Yeah, so for in EOS terms, it's like we have there's 6 functions of EOS. You know this because you guys have run it and you've run
Yep.
it in past companies. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
But people, like the people component is so important. One of the people components is accountability chart, and the other tool is right people, right seats.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the exercise that we go through with EOS is before you add anybody to it, you try to create the structure, the accountability chart that best suits the
The
company,
business.
the
Yep.
business. That's
Yep.
right. And you want to make it as simple as possible.
Yep.
So in doing that, and it's an iterative process, is, when we started the business, we had, 3 or 4 roles within the business, and then it grew to 6 or 7. And then, I'm over structured in a lot of ways. And so maybe it grew too big to like 10 to 12. And then that's where you're like, you have 2 people or 1 person in 2 seats kind of thing.
Right.
So we try to scale it back. And it's been fluid, but um, again, so like the accountability chart is what the business needs at that point in time and that point in the life cycle. And then you take the people, right seats, and you obviously some of these people are on your staff. Or as you start to fill in this accountability chart, you realize, okay, I'm stretched thin, or he's stretched thin, or she's not in the right seat. We need to kind of move her into this role,
Right.
and so the accountability chart fits the business where it needs to be, and then the people fill in that. And then within the accountability chart, I try to keep it to 4 to 5 bullet points of each role,
Hmm.
as simple as possible, um, to make sure that each person in the company knows exactly what they need to do, or what their
Right.
most important.
At a high level, at a simple level.
Yeah, I call it highest ROI activities.
Nice.
These are
I
the
like that.
most important things for you to do to add value to our company.
Yep. I
So
dig that. And it generally starts with like there's generally a couple, I think you hit them, but like the key um like functions, right? You got a sales, you generally have a marketing, you generally have like an administration slash finance,
yeah,
and then some type of operations,
yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes marketing will fall under sales. It just depends.
Right.
So
And then so right now you're sitting in the visionary role. Are you the integrator as
yeah,
well? I
that's
think
the
so.
general
That's the
manager
general
role.
manager. And then are you sitting a little bit? You said you got a sales manager now
Yep. And then I sit in the ops
and the
manager
ops manager
and finance
and
manager.
finance manager.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
those people are like they're doing the job.
Right.
So like Eric does the finance piece for us.
Right.
And then like Wesley is our bookkeeper underneath Eric,
Right.
so
Exactly.
so to speak. Um, but the ultimate goal would be to have somebody sit at that table and be the voice for that team,
Right.
which we talked about that I think before we started recording. Is like
Yep.
you don't want to grow that team too fast. I've had people in those meetings that shouldn't be there, but at the same time, I think being able to add the right people to those leadership seats is so important for the company, because then their team becomes responsible,
Right.
outside of just you. And
Yep.
I think that's important for any business to grow.
Definitely.
So,
Has it? What are? I'm sure the answer is yes. So I'm gonna ask it a different way. But what are the things that have been the hardest for you to let go of?
everything.
Yeah.
I would say, I think this year is probably the easiest way to answer that is like walking away, like leaving the business, like leaving the building.
Hmm.
It sounds so easy for people, and I've tried it in the past, but um, like physically walking away and saying, I trust you with your job.
Yeah.
Um, Physically not being in the building and allowing some of these problems to both come to the surface naturally, and to allow some of these fires to be fought by our leaders and by our teams.
Yeah.
And it's taken me, and this goes with the patience piece too, but it's taken me actually, like, so my schedule right now is I work 7 to 12:30 and I leave at 12:30.
No way.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
So everybody always says that. And I started this February 1st.
That's
I talked to my
amazing.
leadership team. Yeah, I was like, hey, like I feel I've been praying about this. I've been processing this, and I think this is something like the next step for our team. We're open until 4:30 in the afternoon, is for me to leave at 12:30 and give you the space to run the show and figure some stuff out. And it's so difficult, and it sounds glorious, right? Like
I, I,
the
I'm gonna keep going. I got plenty of
yeah,
thoughts to add on, but
but I remember the first couple of days, I'm just like biting my
freaking out.
nails.
Like, what am
And
I?
I bring my laptop home and I'm
Yeah.
checking emails and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
making sure everybody has what they need. But even that, like after a couple of weeks, I just felt I was like, I'm gonna stop responding to emails until the morning,
Hmm.
unless it's a fire that needs to be put out.
Yeah.
And really, like, it was interesting because like as I stepped more and more away, both physically and, to that degree of like not responding right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'd come in the morning and, maybe let's just say those 10 questions that were asked, 5 of them got answered before I even got back.
Yep.
And I'm like, so then you can start to, affirm people in their decision making. And you also see gaps, right? There's a lot of stuff that comes to the surface, issues when you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that stuff gets surfaced a lot quicker. Like, and this, like, we as owners are band-aids for our company a lot of times because we don't want our clients to suffer, we don't want the business to suffer, and so we just start patching stuff, right, and start putting band-aids on things, and you don't really like ever solve the key issue because you're like, oh, I got this, I'll take care of that, oh, I'll take this off your plate, oh, I'm going to handle this problem.
Yep.
And by stepping away, I've our team has grown because there's more accountability, and I've affirmed they're both good decisions, and we've coached through some bad decisions. Leaders have grown because there's again more accountability on them, and then issues come to the surface a lot quicker. And so I can then in our meetings weekly, I can say, okay, this came to the surface twice, 3 times the past 2 weeks for me not being here. Is there a system that we can put in place that fixes this? Is there a conversation I need to have to fix this? Like what, like how do we, and then we IDS it, right? So whoever
Mm-hmm.
the key stakeholders are within that decision, we have those conversations and then we go for the solve. We try to figure that problem out. So
That's amazing, man. I didn't realize you were. That's a huge accomplishment. One, to be able to like get your business and your team to the point where you're like, hey, I'm gonna try to do this. But also, I mean, really looking at it as, hey, this is a development opportunity for all of us,
yeah,
especially the team, because it's like, I trust you guys. Like
yeah,
if things come up, figure it out and learn while doing so.
yeah, for sure. And then the last piece I'll add to that, because you're making me think of things that are coming to mind too.
Mm-hmm.
Like in becoming an owner, like I make way less decisions, right? And so like, but each decision I make has a lot higher
Impact.
value or impact, yeah. And I'm able to take more time and in US terms they call it a clarity break. You can like stepping away from the business and literally being able to breathe on each decision a little bit longer
Yeah.
and be like, okay, I'm gonna put it a week like if you had to make a decision and you're like, I'm going to put a week between me and this decision, that doesn't mean it's out of sight, out of mind. It's
Right.
like you're trying to process, you're trying to seek wise counsel, you're trying to, write it down, iterate like whatever this decision is going to be, play out all the circumstances. And so in stepping away, I'm able to, in the patience piece,
Yeah.
is I'm able to be a better owner because I can take each decision that needs some of it, like issue comes up. I'm like, hey, like do you guys understand the issue here? Can you solve this issue? Okay, I trust you with that.
Yeah.
But like the high impact ones that like I ultimately have to make a decision on, I'm gonna spend some time. Hey, I'll
Yep.
get back to you next week. I'm gonna spend some time over the next week, like really processing this.
Yep.
And so I'll spend my afternoons, processing some of these bigger decisions,
Yeah.
having some phone calls with mentors and wise
Nice.
counsel,
Yep.
and just playing
Yep.
playing these things out and then trying to make the best decision possible.
Yeah.
So
And that's a good point. Is just because you're not physically there at your at the building doesn't mean that you're, you know, not working or not like still in the
yeah.
mindset. I mean, and that's I mean, talk to me about that. Like, I mean, when you leave work, I mean, do you are you able to shut it off, or is that something that just,
Yeah.
it's kind of just always there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think each day has its own set of circumstances. I think when, you're wrestling with finances or you're wrestling with one of these big issues that I was just
Yeah.
referring to, it carries a different weight with it.
Yep.
Um, and so that's really challenging. But then at the same time, I'm looking at, my kids get home from school at 3:30 or I could sometimes I pick up my daughter from school at
That's
3.
awesome.
Like these are all things that like I didn't get to do in the beginning part of my career.
Right.
And I am very blessed. I am young to be able to get to this point and this is a season also. Like
Yeah.
our business could require something completely different of me, 3 months from now than, the season that we're kind of walking in right now. So, but in this season, having that space to, like I said, have this space to process, and then also focus on my family has been
Yeah.
so healthy, because it's just not been something I've been able to do in the past.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's important, that because that'll, man, another thing you said, taking the time to make certain, decisions. Like there's certain things where it's like, yeah, we don't have time to like wait, right?
yeah.
But there are things, bigger, higher impact, strategic decisions. Like we don't need to make a
Hmm.
snap judgment. And something that I've, and I'm sure you felt with this. I mean, like the emotional roller coaster of being a business owner. It's like,
Hmm.
for me, the highs are really, really high,
Yeah.
but the lows can be really, really low. And, just riding that wave, I mean, if you're having a couple good days,
Yeah.
where like you're just everything seems to be going right, you
Yeah.
make a big decision, and then you go through like the, I guess, a little bit more of the down. You're
Yeah.
like, damn, all right,
How did we
like,
get here?
yeah, how do we get here or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
do you experience that?
I think what I'm learning right now is that, again, like, to focus less on the outcome and more on the process of making the decision.
Mm-hmm.
And again, EOS does this. My faith is a big part of this. But if we truly take time, seek wise counsel, get every, again, key stakeholder involved, they're heard, the three C's: curiosity, candor, and communication. So, like, am I like reaching out to the people that are involved in this decision and asking for their feedback and their input? So you're evaluating the issue, you're getting key stakeholders involved, you're seeking wise counsel, and then for me, I'm praying about it and really trying to like
Yeah.
let the Lord guide me in some of this, and then making an intentional decision. And if all of those things like lead to the decision that I make, then I have to be okay that the decision I made was what was in the best interest of the team. Like if I truly walked those things out. If I respond hastily and react right away and be like, I think Tucker thinks that this is the best decision possible.
Right.
Well, then you start to get wrapped up in the good decisions, the bad decisions. This one led to this one led to that. But if I truly just take the time and follow those steps and then make a decision, yes, some are going to grow our business, some are going to maybe challenge our business in a different way, but I can rest in that decision making process, and then the outcome kind of takes care of itself. And again, no one's going to bat 100, but, and we'll figure this out a long time from now, but each decision ends up having an impact that ultimately leads to growth in the company.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
yeah.
An attorney that has built a really, really well-known regional law firm here in the Carolinas. I got the opportunity to spend some time with him on some client work, and he's in his 80s and has been around. And
Yeah.
he was telling me the story that when he was like in his early years, like
Mm-hmm.
like young, fresh out of school attorney, one of the partners that he reported to came in, and was just saying, you know, you guys are never going to grow or make any money because all you do is work.
Yeah.
And what he was saying was that you've got to have time to step away from doing and think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, and think in a strategic manner and think about the future and what that means. Because if you're just so
Yeah.
caught up in doing, what needs to get done today, you forget about the future.
Yeah.
And just, I guess why I'm saying that is because everything you've talked about and the processes that you go through and where you're at now with being able to step away from the business every afternoon, it seems like you've implemented that type of philosophy in your
That's good.
business.
Yeah. That's
So
really good.
yeah, man. So what does refined tile look like 5, 10 years from now? What's the long-term vision and the long-term goal?
Yeah. 5, 10 years from now, I think the 10-year picture is the hardest for me right now. So we do 10, 3, 1, 90.
Yep.
So 10-year, 3-year, 1 year, 90 days.
Yep.
And I've currently been living in I think up until this year, I was in the 90, like really just
Yeah,
trying to,
just
yeah, each quarter make sure we're executing,
yeah.
growing, and that worked really well. And now I'm kind of like trying to implement that within our leadership team and like help them kind of stay in that pocket, not focus on day to day, focus on the 90 days. And then so now for me, I'm kind of in this 1 to 3 year range. I think I think the idea of having a second location is um, kind of on the top of my mind right now. Not so much of like having a second location as like an achievement of like, oh, we're to that size or to that scale. And I tried to explain this to my team, and you'll probably understand this, but if we are able, and I don't want to jump to this because there's all kinds of stuff that comes with it, but like if we were able to have a second location, then that would have to mean that our company here, our refined Wilmington location, would have to be able to run so seamlessly without me and be profitable enough to make it make sense for us to open a second location.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, success for me in that sense would be like not opening a second location in and of itself,
Right.
but the fact that we built a business here in Wilmington that would allow that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes total sense.
So, like, for me, and this is what I'm preaching to the team is like my goal is for Refine Wilmington to run without me,
Mm-hmm.
not because I want to go be taking naps and laying by the
Yeah, you
beach,
don't strike me as that kind of guy.
but because I want to see the team be so interdependent on our people, systems, processes,
Mm-hmm.
and our clientele, not come to see Tucker, but come to see Rob, Olivia, Haley, Brittany. Um, for our ops team to, when a fire pops off and something needs to get solved, like between Sean and Lucas, they know exactly what needs to be done.
Yep.
In our financial services department, there's still some things I'm doing that I would prefer not to be doing, and that, if we have all of which your team's helping tremendously go through an accounting integration right now, by the way, thank you.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're trying to streamline our processes.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, like, there's less questions to have to answer and there's less, breaks in the chain, so
Right,
to speak.
exactly.
And so, like, hopefully, and we're already seeing some of the fruit from this, but like once that is solved, like, it'll need less and less of my time. And then my wife does an awesome job with our marketing. She'll always tell you she's not good at it, but like she runs that, like, does content, does client engagement, does a ton for our business. So like if Refine Wilmington could run itself without me, not that I'm not involved, but it
Yeah.
could, then 3 years from now we could start another location, and could we duplicate what we've done?
Right, exactly.
So like I don't care about having a second location, and I think that's why I've held off on even kind of saying that publicly to our team. I just told them at our Q1, end of Q1, beginning of Q2 meeting, I was like, hey guys, I've been praying and processing this, and I think this is our 3-year target.
Yep.
Or not, I know that this is our 3-year target, but I want you to know that what that means is what I just kind of said to you, which is like, I want this to be so like Loctite and you guys run so smoothly and we're profitable and everything's running to the place that I'm not here, so that way we can warrant or justify doing this.
That's
So,
awesome, man.
yeah.
Well, it's been pretty cool to hear about the story and the progression, and I think that a lot of small business owners can empathize. But I mean, just the way that you've done things, and I've got to watch you grow a little bit from the inside, as
Yeah.
well. But man, it's just super impressive what you've been able to build, and your leadership speaks a lot. And yeah, man. So just wanted to say thanks and congrats on everything.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on, and as always, it's fun to talk about business. So,
Yeah, man.
and we appreciate you guys a lot too.
Yeah,
So,
awesome. Well, thanks, Tucker. Appreciate it.
you end with a handshake?
Yeah.